I literally have no idea how this is gonna work. So I'm doing a show, the Mississauga Comic Expo or something like that with Torolug, and it's a one-day show, and it's been a long time since I've not brought the layout, the 8 boxes, to a show. But I'm thinking that I'm not going to this time, because it's a one-day show, and basically you get there at 9 and the show starts an hour later, and it takes a long time to set up the entire layout. And Sandy and I have been talking, and I'd known it for years ago when I was doing layouts for BrickFet and all the other shows. Of course, the actual layout evolved over the years, but we did what we called the Family Fun Fest in Toronto. Our good friend Kevin was running that, and we helped. And I brought a scaled down version of the layout. Basically, I brought the tower and Jeff's air station or habitat, I think maybe it was the habitat, and one little monorail loop. And it was 4 feet by 5 feet. It was really tiny, but it was quick to set up. Setting up the tower by itself with one monorail loop, it's the easiest thing I've ever done. The problem is, back then, the layout itself was not in the wooden boxes, it was all in cardboard boxes, so I could mix and match as I wanted to. Right now, the layout is across 8 boxes, 8 wooden storage boxes, and each box specifically has the parts that fit in that box. They're like custom tailored to those boxes. And so when I was trying to come up with an idea of downsizing the actual layout so I don't have to bring 8 boxes and bring like 4, I can't do it. Because box 1 has, if it would indulge me for a second, maybe I have, I used to, maybe it's here. I love this thing. You might see this later, by the way. Box 1 has the launch pad, and it has the monorail station, and it has the observation deck. So that's box 1. So if I'm building a tower, I have to bring part of box 1, and then do I just take the observation deck out? Box 2 has the habitat entirely, so I can just bring box 2. And if I want basically, if I wanted the tower and the habitat, this is basically what I would have, is this one little monorail loop going between the two. So box 2 would have to go straight up. Box 3, which is all the base of the tower, have to go. That's another box. And box 4 is the rest of the tower. So at least 3 boxes plus the observation deck. So 1, 2, 3 boxes full. So there's missing 1 box, and then all the landing pads, obviously, because there's a landing pad in box 1 too. So I'd have to bring that in a different box. So I might as well just bring box 1. So all of a sudden I'm bringing 4 boxes, the 4 square boxes, and then we get into the rectangle boxes that have the track and have this and that and the other thing. There would be no train track in this guy if I made it small, not like I was able to do with the Family Fun Fest. So there would be a, I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to think about how I can scale this down to bring half the boxes, and nothing's working. so anywho, but I don't want, it's going to take me well over an hour to set up. It takes up to 2 hours if I completely focus on it. The last show we did, as I said, at the Anime North, it went spectacularly well. All things considered, it went spectacularly well. I was set up in an hour 45. It was nonstop. There's nobody, talking, hey Dave, because I love the chat. So that's my other problem with the setting up the layout with people there. I love the chat. So that pauses me putting the layout together. And taking the layout down, oh my goodness, 45 minutes. It was the quickest takedown ever of that layout in this setup. So I'm thinking, basically, I'm gonna probably go old school for the Mississauga Comic Expo. I'm gonna go old school, and which means that I need to bring, because again, I have an absolutely stack of base plates and crater plates and landing plates and road plates that I can bring and just do an ad hoc layout like we used to do. So, and so I got on here and started goofing around with Track Designer. Yes, it's an extremely old piece of software. I still have this persistent cough, by the way. So this is, anyway, I'll talk about it later. So I didn't reinstall Track Designer, but I did get back into it a little bit just to see, and I wanted to find, where is it? I had, well, damn it. Sorry, darn it. I had one of our layouts shown here. So anyway, we'll start with this one. This, and if you can see, I'm gonna like get this thing as close as I possibly can. This is our track design layout of the square, which was one of the biggest layouts that Jeff and I ever did, and it was one of the most complicated layouts we ever did. And it has, I don't know how many feet of track in it, though Track Designer will tell me, but I actually find the right one. I think report pieces. It doesn't say how long it is, but 82 pieces of short monorail track, 66 pieces of straight track, 56 curved track, upper ramp, lower ramp, 26 and 26. It was a monstrously huge layout for us. Now, my good friend Dave Eaton made bigger layouts with his group down there on the East Coast, but this was our biggest, basically 12 foot by 12 foot with a hole in the middle. We call it the square. So I think it had 6 independent monorail loops, and this is when I still cared about having all the monorail loops joined together with switches, so you can move a train from loop to loop if you wanted to, although we never did. So I basically gave up making switches in monorail loops after this show. But it was a fantastic display for the weekend. It took us 2 days to set up and no time to take down. I'm not going to go with this one yet. This is as close to the one we're doing now. And let's see, Chicago train show. So let's go to the train show. This is when it started. Let me see this one. Oh yeah, let's do this one first. This is when it started to evolve into the current layout. This is 7.5 by 10, and it had Jeff's air station over here. Let me just turn it again. It had Jeff's air station over here, the tower here. You can see the tower here, and it had these landing pads in the background. This is before I built that secret base in the crater. And it had this little my big low crater with the vehicle being pulled around by the magnet, which I loved, and I wish I could fit it into the new layout, but it doesn't fit. So that was always there. So we did this layout, basically this layout, a few times, and this is where the core of the structured layout started. Was this guy right here, and this plan overall remained relatively the same as we went on. So this was 2010. So this is right before BrickFest. We did this at the Christmas train show with Doug and Frank, the Frank and Doug show. It's the first time I did this type of layout. We had Jeff's monorail station in the back here. At the time, yeah, sorry, it was right there. The Jeff's monorail station right there. It didn't have the train track going through it, which was odd for me, because I remember we did have at the beginning the train track going through it. But anyway, I don't want to cancel this whole thing. Let's see, no, cancel. I just want to close this guy. Done. Now we're going to get into, I want to minimize this because I don't want to get into this one yet. So Chicago. Then we went to Chicago also in 2010, and this is the layout that I brought there. And basically I took the monorail area around the tower and I twisted it so it's facing that way instead of this way. And so you can see the towers here, the monorail track goes around there. I had this thing, and then Jeff's air station was way back here. We didn't have the rocket yet, the rocket launcher yet. And so this was kind of an ad hoc on top of tables. And it worked well. And basically I just boxed everything in cardboard boxes to get it down to Chicago. Because I was bringing a wife and a kid and luggage for a week. For a week. So I didn't have a lot of room to have big boxes. So but it was a nice layout in Chicago. I like that Chicago show. Brick World 2010, I think it was. I love track designers still to this day. So what else we got here? We got, oh, maybe 2008. This is, okay, I should have started with this one. This is going way back, and Jeff might recognize this completely. This was one of our completely ad hoc shows when we first started doing classic space. So this wasn't like the first one we did, but it was like the third or fourth one where we just put a whole bunch of tables together, threw a whole bunch of base plates out there, and ran monorail track again with a very limited mapping. But you'll see here's the beginning of my crater that I made that pulled the car around. That worked well. These guys are 6970s, Beta 1 command centers. These are 924s. And then Jeff had his station right here, his monorail station, which is really cool. Not the one with the space logo on it, but the original one that used the trans yellow quarter domes on top. Just gorgeous. One of my favorite builds ever. This had the 3 separate loops. The next show we did had this exact same setup, except we put a 4th loop on the end, so we added 2 more tables. So I couldn't find that layout in here, and I just couldn't figure out why. But that's back in 2008, a long time ago. So we'll just get rid of that one, and we'll go back here. And then the hobby show. The hobby show is exactly the same as Chicago, so that's fine. We're not going to worry about that one. That can go away. And then, so we had the 2010 and the Chicago, and then this is Brick Fete. I don't know which year that is. This one says 2012, possibly 2012. That was 7.5 by 18 feet. Yeah, I guess in square, I don't have the numbers in my head. 12 by 12 versus 7 by 18. 12 by 12 is 144 square feet. 7 by 18, I'm not good at math. 7 times 9 is 63, so 100 and oh, for crying out loud, 132, 126 feet. So this would be smaller than 12 by 12, but of course a 12 by 12 had the square in the middle. That was it, but who cares? I'm not counting square footage. But right here is the core of our layout for a long time, the 7.5 by 10. We just add another 10 on the other side. So, or 8 on the other side. We put Jeff's air station. No, Jeff's air station was right there where it was for the longest time. And this was his rocket pad because we actually had a rocket. Jeff built a rocket. This was a fun layout. I just didn't have enough time to build all the details. That was pretty stark, pretty empty. I mean, all the landing pads were full of Galaxy Explorers, but I didn't have a lot of detail. Right in the middle here, I had some sort of agridome thing that I was trying to set up with the trans dark blue quarter domes and pieces. I didn't have too many details on that. It was just too big and too spread out. And but it was good for one show. The other critical issue is that we built it on top of the carpet floor. We had the layout right on the carpet floor. We did that a few times at Brick Fete, and overall it was fine. But when you're trying to put it together and you're trying to put the pieces to hold all the other pieces together right on the carpet, the pieces bend because the carpet's not solid. A little more difficult to set up, but still look great for the kids. They loved it. They could see down because if you put it up on a table, the little kids can't, the mom and dad have to pick them up. So this is why I love my boxes right now, because again, the layout's on top of the boxes. And when the layout's on top of the boxes, that is actually lower than a table. So the kids, most kids don't have to have their parents pick them up to look at my layout. So I do like that more. It's off the floor because, again, when you put it on the floor, you have to be on the floor to put it together. And then we're getting old and trying to get back up. Gravity is a very, very harsh mistress. So I enjoyed this layout, but it had numerous deficiencies. The spread outness, the lack of detail across it, the fact that it was on, if it was on a solid floor instead of a carpeted floor, might have been. It's a showroom. It's like it's a conference room. It's a banquet hall, whatever you want to call it. It's a hotel thing. So so it wasn't like, you know, shag carpet. It's very like Berber carpet or whatever. So it wasn't like that giving, but it's giving enough to make it a little more difficult to put Lego pieces together when you're trying to push down on the base plates. But it worked well for the show. I never did it again. Just didn't want to do it again. So where am I here? Where's my mouse? Go over there, close that one. Then we have what became the standard layout for so many shows. This is half that one that we just looked at. This is what I brought to New Brunswick. This is what I brought to BrickFet half the time. The later dates. Again, this was all stored in cardboard boxes at the time. It was easier to store, compact, a lot less air in the boxes, unlike now. But I have it's easier for me to store and stuff. Less breakage now with the wooden boxes as opposed to the cardboard boxes. But this is 7.5 by 10. My little crater's there, my tower's there, my big crater's there, Jeff's air station's there, blah blah blah, and it looked well. It looked good. There was like 4 different monorail loops, even like a little 5th one, and it was big enough. 7.5 by 10. You can add a lot of detail there without overwhelming. But what I had to do when I went with the wooden boxes in order to stop the breakage and have better storage in my house and blah blah blah, is that I had to lose half of this. Instead of 7.5 by 10, the new layout is now 5 by 7.5. Basically, I just took this part here. You can see where all this stuff is, basically, and this is the line right here. So I had to lose Jeff's air station, which is sad because I love Jeff's air station. This is his monorail station there. This is my big crater, and this is my little crater over here. All this part had to go away. Three base plates by 9 base plates gone, and then so I have 9 base plates here by 6 base plates. So that's how big it is. And so you'll see here, this whole area is identical when you get down to it. The other thing I liked about this layout that I can't do anymore, I got to use a cross-track piece, a 9-volt cross-track piece, because the actual train track went in this little figure 8 loop around here, and I loved that part. I really did, but I had to lose that. So, unfortunately, so we'll just get that one going, bye-bye. But we did that one at so many shows. Minimize that. Do I have... oh, I have some other ones up here. BrickFet 2017. So this is the layout I have now since BrickFet 2017. So there's the tower, there's the rocket launch, there's a habitat, there's the monorail station that I built. These are the 2 landing pads that they always have the Galaxy Explorers on them. So this is 6 base plates by 9 base plates, or 2 old school train modules by 3 old school train modules. It's nice. And again, as you can see, the track, it goes around here. And of course, I had the cross track here with the intent that should I do other shows, I can put the other big thing back on, the rest of it. But I didn't bother getting that far. Do I have registers? No. What else is there? We already saw that one, so I'm gonna get rid of that one. So this is, I think this is my last one. This is my last one. Yeah, this is my last one. So current layout with modular moon base standard all the way around the perimeter, so I could figure out how to get moon base connected to my layout. I've not 100% given up on that. I really haven't, but it's not a priority for me. The only moon base connections that I have right now are right there. I actually eliminated this guy going that way. It just annoyed me it was interfering with the train station. It took away from the overall look of the show. But in the end, it is what it is. When I do a show with other people who are bringing moon-based compatible stuff, I'm gonna ask if I can be with that area, but it's my layout's on those boxes, and my base plates are taped to plywood or melamine, and so it's probably thicker than mills. I haven't actually measured how thick mills are, but my layout, because all the wiring and everything that goes underneath needs to be on top of those boxes and needs to be on top of that platform that I make. So me trying to liaise or interface with, like, directly with other moon-based stuff, I don't know. I'm gonna have one that will always be ready to go, but in the end, I don't know how high their tables are gonna be. So mine's are a specific height all the time. So I was thinking about making a variable tower so you can just hook up no matter how high it is. Maybe sometime in the future. So so that's what I wanted to show you, that I've been still using. And again, my friend David, he uses the other shows. Oh yeah, so this is what I wanted, the last slide right here. So this is what I'm probably going to bring to Mississauga. I'm still debating. That's why I was just goofing around with this tonight. So basically, I don't want to bring a lot, but I can bring base plates because they don't take up any space when they're stacked together. They like the crater plates and the landing plates and the T intersections take up 0 space. And then you have a perimeter of crater plates all around there, and I got enough of that. But my plan that some people, excuse me, some people might find a little esoteric. Oh, I got something got the burpees. Must be bedtime. Is I have 10 landing pads and the roads in between. So I'm going to bring all the little 886s and all the other ones, all the 821s and all that stuff. I haven't bought this, should go up in there. I'm going to bring all the 3-digit set numbers to here, including a 924, which will be right at the top. Maybe bring 2 and put one down here, and then the rocket launchers and the mobile tracking stations and all that stuff will just be on the perimeter, and just, you know, salt it, populate it, make it look like they're doing something. I got the roadways to move around in, blah blah blah, and bring 10 Galaxy Explorers because I can. And I don't know if other people will appreciate that. I'm sure. I don't know if they say, "Oh, Dave, you didn't bring the tower." It's for a couple, for a 5-hour show. I did that at the Canadian Toy Collector Society show, and I did enjoy that. But I did have a lot more time to set up before the show opened, and basically I got to start taking out at 2. It's a very short show. I've been saying for years, I really, honestly, goodness, and I know why they don't do them anymore, and I get why they don't do them anymore, but I really, really do miss the 2-day show. The Toy Train and Doll Show, or the Christmas Train Show with Frank and Doug, and the Spring Times Train Show with Frank and Doug. Sometimes we were able to set up Friday night, which is utterly fantastic. I just called him up and said, Frank, yeah, we'll be there. Doug will be there. Give us a 20 by 20 area or 40 by 40 area, as I mentioned in my other videos. And I would send a post on Lugnet or wherever else at Lego Dinner. Hey guys, the show's a couple weekends from now. We can go Friday night from 7 till 11, set up. Saturday morning we can show up at 7. The show opens at 9 to the public, and we should be good to go. And it always worked fantastically, from my opinion. I don't know whoever else was there. I don't remember hearing too many downsides to the Frank and Doug show. But I do remember. Yeah, I do remember it. I do remember that I always had a great time at his show, and it was their show, and it was very easy to get along with them, and the setup time was more than sufficient. You got to drive in, you got to drive straight in. It was always at the International Center at hall 5 or 6 or 4, whatever. You got to drive right in, drop your stuff right where you wanted to, and then drive back out, park the car. And I wish I had my layout back then, because that would have been fantastic. Instead of every show I've done so far with the wooden boxes, I've had to lug in. Now, lugging is a relative term. I have a dolly. So I have a dolly. So it takes 3 trips to get all the parts and pieces in. The 3 trips, I got 1 trip with the two square boxes, and then another trip with the 2 square boxes, and then 1 trip with the 4 long boxes. It works fantastically well, and the wood just goes on top of whatever I'm going in at the time. So 3 trips out to the car, it's not bad, and most times you get to park the car while you're unloading near the entrance, or wherever you're allowed to load in. The collector toy, CTCS, Canadian Toy Collector Society, you got to pull right up to the back door of the gym that we were in, and so that was loaded off, put it, and then go park your car in the parking lot. At the Anime North, which was a zoo, a complete zoo, 30,000 people a day, a complete zoo, they still allowed you for unloading to go right to the entrance. Now, the problem for me is that the entrance that the exhibitors and vendors got to go into was, to scale, was on one end of the building, and our layouts or display, the Toro lug display was basically on the other end of the building. So you had to walk all the way through 2 or 3 buildings to get to where we were. It's fine. I've had worse, where I've actually, smooth concrete floor with a dolly. Like, how much effort's that? My issue is my wife's waiting for me back in the car, so nothing walks away. And again, I trust people. I've never, I know of one of our shows that we had, I think with one of our Frank and Doug shows, where somebody lost a digital camera, and I still feel bad about that to this day, that they left it inside our area, where all the, where we sit and all that stuff, and I think it was inside a box. Somebody found it, and it wasn't there the next morning. I still feel bad about that to this day. And so, but out of the history of shows that we have done, now, can I say that no minifig has walked away from my layout? No, I cannot. I cannot possibly say that I've never lost a minifig. My problem is I wouldn't notice it overall if it was just one of the random minifigs on the layout. Very, very few of my minifigs are serving a purpose, and I know where those ones are, but I have hundreds of minifigs on the layout, and if one disappeared, I have heard from other shows where somebody shows up with the castle minifigs, especially the collector ones, that there was a point in the castle theme where you bought 4 of the sets to collect all the chrome pieces for the knight. The sword came in one thing, the shield came in one thing, the helmet came in one thing, the armor came in one thing, one set, and so you had to buy all 4 sets to get the guy fully armored. I remember back on Lugnet, somebody said, I was at this show in wherever in the world, I came back the next morning for the day 2 of the show, and my guy was gone. Even though I don't know the person and I don't know the show, I've never been there, somewhere in, I believe, in the States or maybe Europe, that I take that personally. I really do. I'm a trustworthy person, and yet when that happens, it's like, it doesn't make me happy. So I've been very, very lucky and fortunate in my shows that nothing has been taken. Stuff's been broken, absolutely. Absolutely. I've had to rebuild stuff. I know I've broken some of Derek's stuff. Sorry, Derek. But there was, if we want to talk about this for a sec, there was one we were doing. It wasn't called Altenburg. That was our first train layout, or our second or third train layout. It was the Van Windham layout, where Callum had a section, Derek had a section, Jeff had a section, and Jeremy had a section of this big, beautiful, very, very landscaped, mountainous streams and falls and like beautiful details. And Jeremy was bringing one of his boxes to the setup, and it fell and smashed, which was a big portion of one of the mountains. And he spent that day rebuilding it at the show. When people are coming, he built it enough so the train could still go around, but then he had to rebuild the mountain at the show. That was a big catastrophe, but again, it happens. I've had, this is back before I had the wooden boxes and before I actually made the landing pads removable on the tower. Is that big huge tower, this whole centerpiece, let's just look at this picture. This whole centerpiece here was one piece. The landing pads were attached to the diamond of the tower. Now the top came off and the bottom was all, but this whole centerpiece was one. And I would put it in the van carefully, and then I would put boxes underneath, so if you hit a bump, the landing pads don't go smashing around in the van. But there was one time, and I think I was going up to St. Jacobs, and I can't remember if I was halfway there or whatever. I'm in Coketown somewhere, butt fart nowhere out between here and St. Jacobs, where I don't know, I can't remember, but it was a sudden stop. Maybe a cat darted out, I can't remember, and I slammed on the brakes, whatever, and that whole piece smashed into the boxes in front of it. And then of course I'm still driving, so I can't look. so I get to the Janie shop at St. Jacobs, and I open up the back hatch of my van, and I'm going, that's not pretty. So that took me a while to rebuild before the show. It's not an easy rebuild, and that was an impetus for me to make the landing pads separate, so they could come off easily, because that was way too unwieldy. I mean, it's about this wide when you get the landing pads on. It's way too unwieldy to just carry in your car, no matter how much you reinforce it. And of course, there's no box that's going to hold that, right? You'd have to have a massively huge cover box, and that's going to take up all the space in your car. So, so this is why that was one of the main reasons. Just that accident alone for me was smashing the center part, and of course that's the focus. That's the big part of the layout of the tower, is the landing pad layer, right? I mean, the entire tower can just be truncated, just taking that whole center part right out, and it'll still be a tower. It works that way. I've done it before. I was lazy one time, and this is funny. So again, like there's a seam here, there's a seam here, there's a seam here, here, and here. So one time, I think it was that time, because I hadn't rebuilt that centerpiece yet, that I just put this top part right on top of this part, and that whole diamond with the landing pads was not there on the St. Jacobs layout, because I had to fix it. And I can't remember if it was Simon or somebody else. Oh, Dave, the tower looks short. But they couldn't, because why would they? They didn't realize that the entire center part with all the landing pads and the big diamond was missing. But it would, because that will work. The tower I built so you can mix and match if you wanted to. I don't know why you would, but you could put the observation deck down here. You really can. It will still do the same thing. That's how lazy I am. So, all my connectors all the way up are identical footprints. So that's the one I remember. I'm sure there were others. I'm sure there were absolutely others, huge catastrophes at shows. But I remember Derek. We were trying to be so helpful to help him load his car with his train stuff. And I can't remember if I pushed something in the back, which caused a box to push something out the side door, because he had one of those sliding doors, and that whatever was there smashed on the floor. I feel bad to this day about that one, because I was involved in that. And again, the Jeremy's smash, and it was just like one of our earlier RTL Toronto competitions, robot competitions, where I think it was Project X. I don't want to say it was Project X officially, but it might have been Project X, because that was still one of my favorite ones. It's one I didn't win. One of the few I didn't win. But Project X, the guy was bringing it was the Lillian H. Smith Library downstairs. And we're used to it because we were going there lots. But this guy was bringing his robot down the stairs, and he was just. I think this has happened to everybody. I'm not sure. I'm the klutz. What happens to me all the time, where in your head you think you're at the bottom step, and you're stepping onto the floor, and you got a step to go. And basically that's what happened. And he went woof, and his robot whoosh all over the floor. Now, if I thought rebuilding the diamond of my tower with basic bricks and a couple trans-yellow domes was tough, I can't even imagine trying to rebuild a robot. like, oh my goodness! Like, and Project X, they were big robots. Like, not one of our little on the platform and wrestling with each other, block stacking or whatever. These were big robots that were like across, and like, I can't even imagine trying to rebuild that at a show, at one of our robot competitions. I felt really bad about that one. And then there's the ones that we did on purpose. there was the 2x3 on the teeter totter. See whoever had the highest end. Janie beat me on that one, by the way. She was wonderful. There was one, I can't remember whose it was, but basically you start the 2x3 level, and you put one robot on one side and one robot on the other side, and whichever end is the highest wins. So basically you try to get your weight on the other side, so that end goes down and your end goes up, and then you win. Or you knock the other guy off. I can't remember if your end's higher or if you just have to knock the other guy off. I can't remember now, but it was a fun one. I think it was you have to have your end higher than the other end. But there was one robot, and I can't remember who built it. Honestly, I can't remember who built it, but basically it was Speedy Gonzalez. It was a very fast robot that clamped onto the 2x3, and as soon as you hit go, it went like right across the other side. And whatever robot's on the other side, because of the momentum, the point was just to knock off that robot. And even if your robot goes flying off the end, with the idea that you're both on that side now, so that side's going to go down. And there was a few times that the robot went, and whatever robot was there was completely pushed like 20 feet off the thing and smashed on the floor. It was like on purpose. So it's like, my robot was an extremely slow turtle-like thing. I had these 6 battery boxes on my robot. So the second you let go of the teeter-totter, my end would be low, but then it would just gradually work up, and whatever's above it, because it had torqued way high and battery boxes way heavy and tires that grip the 2x3s, that nothing was going to stop it. Nothing was going to stop it. What I did not take into consideration is that if you have, and let's just use this as an example of a 2x3 or whatever it is, it's the only thing that I have right here. So you have a 2x3 that's like this, and then you have a very, very heavy weight on this end, and it pulls it down no matter what's on the other end, because I had the heaviest robot there. That the 2x3 is now vertical. And every single competition except one, my robot would just gradually go up here, just gradually work its way up, and then push the other robot off the top, and it would just flip over like that. And my robot had it built in. As soon as it didn't feel the 2x3, or maybe it's 2x4, but the 2x3, it would stop. So it'd be the heavy, and it would stick there and stay there. The problem is, this wasn't a perfect swivel. So if it's perfectly vertical, and it doesn't matter how heavy your robot is, it gets to the top. And if it didn't swing down, because it's perfectly centered, perfectly balanced, no matter how heavy the top is, it wasn't gonna swing over. And that's the one I had with Janie, and it was perfect. And her robot couldn't do anything with my robot, but her end was still higher because my robot all the way up, gets stuck with her robot. And yeah, I think it was a minute and a half, whatever. I can't remember the exact time that you had in order to end the game. And my robot's at the top, her robot's at the top, all this weight's at the top, and it's just sitting there. It was awesome. It was like, I remember most of the robot competitions we did. We did some unremarkable competitions that they were all fun. honest to goodness, they were all fun. But the ones I remember was when we had the huge smashes. Or the complicated ones. Connect 4 was, I didn't even bother trying. I did not even bother building a robot for that. It's one of those things that to this day I say, maybe I should have just given it a shot. But I at the time, I can almost guarantee I did not have the brain space to build one. I'm sure it was something personal, but I did not have the brain space to actually build a robot for that one. That happened a few times in my life during that era of my life where something was going on and I just had no will to build robots. And then when my life was great, I built robots again. I entered over half of the competitions that RTL Toronto ran. I missed a few, again, because of whatever's going on in my personal world. But in the end, it was such a great time of my life. And I met all these wonderful, wonderful people that I don't see anymore. And it's kind of sad. But Jeff, I see. Derek, I see. Janie, I see. And Callum, I see. From those robot competition days. Not too many others, which is kind of sad because they're really, really wonderful people. But say la vie, life goes on. I hope everybody else out there is doing well that I used to know in RTL Toronto that I don't see anymore. I hope everybody's doing well. I do know that, sorry, this is a tangent. I do know that this is my favorite programmable brick. it's pretty easy to tell that I love these things. I do miss that era, but it was like 1998. We're talking 24 years ago. When you actually think about it, 24 years ago, I bought this thing off a store shelf. And I don't even, I have, let's see, I can't even pull this thing out. Anyway, I'm not even going to bother. I have one laptop there that I think I showed it before that still runs XP and 32-bit, which has the RIS software installed on it. And that wasn't even my first laptop to run the RCX. That's a newer laptop than the RCX. But it is what it is. 1998. It's just honestly, I every once in a while I am astounded by that. That 24 years ago, I bought RCXs, and 24 years ago, I started building robots, and 24 years ago, I discovered, maybe 23 years ago, the Guelph show at University of Guelph, where I met Callum, and then I got to meet and then I heard about RTL Toronto, and I started going to dinners at Mel's, and having a great time with that, and taking the subway in, and then the robot competitions. Utterly fantastic. I mean, I love my space layout. I absolutely adore my space layout. I love doing shows, the hobby shows and all that stuff. But one of my favorite memories, and it's never going to happen again, are the robot competitions that we did, and the discussions online with Lugnet and everybody in the world, because Lugnet was open to everybody in the world. Everybody in the world was chiming in on our threads for our robot competitions. And what about this? And what about that? And we had to make special rules, and that's why Callum had to be over the top OCD on the specific rules, because we had people like, not Jeffy, the other one. Actually, that would be Jeffy, but not that Jeffy. Not my friend Jeffy. I guess the other one's my friend Jeffy. Doesn't matter. Like, so there was a sumo competition. One of the first couple RTL Toronto robot competitions was sumo. And basically you just put, this is basically the same thing as what I did with Guelph University, the one there. So you build an RCX with wheels on it that would push the other RCX robot off the circular platform. And that's the sumo part. And whoever's left on top wins. And so Jeffy, not my Jeffy, but the other Jeffy, not my Jeffy at all. Jeff Van Winden, not him, the other guy, would show up with a Lego, and it had to be 100% Lego. 100% Lego, no modifications, no alternate bricks, whatever. He would show up with a Lego sticker, put it down. That's Lego. And the other robot's not going to push him off. And the hope is that the other robot would be stupid enough to just drive off, and then Jeff wins. And so Callum, I feel bad for him, because he'd always have to come up with more and more specific, clear, strict rules to combat the people who always try to, you know, think outside the box or whatever else, the twist the rules enough to have a fake win. Lego sticker, is that a fake win? I have no horse in this race. I just had fun building robots. I showed up with basically a Borg cube, because the robot had to fit within a foot by a foot, foot high. There was no weight limit. So my sumo robot was a foot by a foot by a foot with battery boxes. And an RCX that would move it around. Those tires were screaming. The axles must have been crying. But my robot moved around. And it was just this heavy thing. But what happened to me was a guy named Ian. And to this day, I adore Ian. One of my most favorite people ever. The first time I met him, sumo at Guelph University. So my robot, a cube by a cube, foot by a foot by a foot, big huge cube. And it's not like I watched Robot Wars or anything, whatever, the BattleBots, but I had an idea what I wanted. And so I tried to make my robot as unmovable as possible by exterior forces. So my clearance at the bottom of my robot between the bottom row of bricks and the platform was, I won't say less than a millimeter, but it was pretty much a millimeter. And that's how I built it. And it had the skid steer steering, the RCX inside, that's what it was doing. It had the AB steering. And it had two sensors on the front where if it detected whatever, it would go backwards and then, you know, turn and go another direction. I also tried to be a little bit more BattleBots, and I built a little bit of a scoop in the front. So if it felt that something hit the touch sensor, it would try to scoop it up. But of course, that was pretty slow, but whatever. And so here's my robot moving around. This picture of this thing being a cube by a cube, foot by foot by foot. And it's moving around, and there is, the one at Guelph was basically an 8 foot by 8 foot, 2 pieces of plywood, was painted black all around the perimeter, and a big white circle in the middle. And so basically you just had to push the other robot outside the white circle. It didn't even have to fall off. And so I have a light sensor at the bottom of my robot to detect the edge of the white. And then as soon as it detected the edge of the white, it would back up and then go around, blah, blah. So that was good enough. So my friend Ian, who became my friend, after the first time he kicked my butt, his robot was small, sleek, fast, and unbelievably built with fewest parts as possible, but strong, reinforced with Technic, you know, plate, brick, vertical connections. And it had basically not a scoop, but a ramp on the front that would just slide across the floor. So the wheels were behind it, and the ramp was floating on the floor. He used those 6x8 slopes that you see in the train shed roofs and stuff like that, and the little slopes up to the railway crossing. That's what he used. He had 4 or 5 of them in a row, all Technic reinforced, and just floating off his robot. The robot had a skid steer. I completely blatantly ripped off his motor / wheel setup for my future robots. Straight up, I borrowed from the best. So his robot came along, and his little ski got right underneath. Maybe I can use a brick separator. Where's my brick separator? I do not. So this picture, this thing wide. So his robot got right underneath mine like that. So mine's coming this way, and it just got like that, right? And so my robot wasn't moving forward anymore, but he's not pushing it backwards. His robot could not push mine backwards. But my programming says if you didn't hit a white, the light sensor did not cross into the black after X number of seconds, then it must be stuck somewhere and to back up. so he'd come in, he hit here, I'd back up a little bit and then try to moving in. And he like, it kept on going like this, right? So he basically pushed my robot off onto the black. It was brilliant. And it just like the way it moved, the way his little robot moved, it was just fluid. It was the smoothest thing that I've ever seen, built by out of a Lego RCX robot. I never had anything even remotely as smooth and as functional as that. And I examined his robot thoroughly. And the very next competition, which was probably block sorting or block stacking, probably block stacking, or block gathering, I used his wheel drive mechanism, and I never stopped using it when I had a robot. If you look at my big robot, my 18-inch huge robot, behemoth robot, I used that exact setup with the wheels for robots, because it was brilliant. It was a very, I want to say bereft, but that's not the right word. He had a very, very good use of parts, not a lot of parts, just get the parts you need and to make the job done. And so Ian inspired me for the rest of my robot building career. And his programming is just gorgeous. I mean, oh my goodness, it just blows me away. But anyway, and he works for a robot making company. So there you go. Anywho, it's late. I'm going to go to bed. I wanted to talk about my layout that I'm going to be doing at Mississauga. And again, this is not written in stone. I'm going to probably change my mind 100 times between now and 2 weeks from now, or a week and a half from now, before the show starts, to see if I'm bringing the layout or just bringing a bunch of base plates and a bunch of spaceships. But it is a thought, and it's been a long time since I did an ad hoc layout like that, and I personally am looking forward to it. I just don't want to disappoint Toro Lug, because I think they are expecting the layout, and I just like, for a 5-hour show, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to discuss with friends. So other than that, there's wow, 51 minutes. I keep on doing this. I keep on meaning to make short videos, and they get up to an hour. Everybody out there, stay safe, take care, and I hope everybody's doing well. I know I'm doing okay. Many things going on, many things in the air right now, but overall my life is good. So I'm hoping yours is as well. You guys all stay safe and take care.